The primary rule of deep space engineering across all 11 civilized quadrants was simple. When a machine breaks beyond 30% structural failure, you abandon it. To the Valith, a silicon chitin species whose civilization had mastered subspace acoustics before humanity learned to smelt iron, logic was sacred. If a vessel's primary power core suffered thermal runaway, mathematical models dictated that repair attempts offered a 92% mortality risk. The correct, honorable, and standard procedure was to seal the escape capsules, purge the navigation logs, and allow the void to claim the wreckage. Commander Teshmore had recited this protocol hundreds of times during his 4 decades serving the Concordat Transit Authority. Yet, as he stood on the observation gantry of the perimeter station overlooking Sector 44, he was watching 2 humans violate every sacred law of mechanical sanity. Sector 44 was an orbital graveyard situated at the lip of a dead pulsar. 3 days prior, an ancient Valith dreadnought, the Corvail, had suffered an uncontained gravimetric collapse. Its shields were shattered, its gravity drives were leaking ionizing radiation, and its main spine was cracked clean in half. The Concordat had officially declared the ship dead, written off its immense cargo of refined antimatter batteries, and dispatched a cleanup beacon. Then, a Terran salvage tug named the Rusty Nail arrived. It was an ugly, blocky brick of scratched durasteel, patched with mismatched plating and propelled by primitive chemical fusion thrusters that belched plumes of superheated exhaust into the cold vacuum. It looked like an antique that had somehow escaped a museum forge. Teshmore tapped the audio comms channel, his vocal synthesizer clicking with irritation. Terran vessel, Rusty Nail. This is Transit Commander Teshmore. You are trespassing inside a declared catastrophic hazard zone. The core veil is in Stage 4 terminal structural decay. Its internal bulkheads are failing at 30 meters per standard minute. Withdraw your mooring cables immediately. A crackle of static hissed through the speaker, followed by the dry, rasping drawl of an older human male. Transit Command, this is Captain Marcus Cole of the Rusty Nail. Copy your advisory, Commander. But our sensors indicate the core hasn't breached the inner magnetic containment ring yet. We still have roughly 18 minutes of structural integrity before the spine snaps. 18 minutes is insufficient to extract anything of value. Teshmore hissed, his antennae twitching against his carapace. Your own survival probability is under 6%. Why are you latching kinetic tethers to a dying carcass? Because, Cole replied, the sound of a pneumatic wrench clicking in the background of his audio feed. The core veil is carrying 300,000 metric tons of stabilized helium-3 and 80 civilian medical stasis pods in its subdeck. That's not a carcass, Commander. That's winter supplies for the mining colonies on Seti 9. We are taking it. Teshmore stared through his macro-optics. You are insane. The math does not support your survival. Math didn't build the ship, buddy, Cole grunted. Wrench turners did. Hold your perimeter. We're going inside. Across the bridge of the Rusty Nail. Chief Engineer Sarah Chen didn't look up from her diagnostic holodeck. Her skin was streaked with hydraulic grease, her short dark hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. Her fingers flew across physical rocker switches and tactile keyboards. Interfaces the sleek, touchless Concordat considered barbaric. Tether 3 is locked onto the alien dreadnought's dorsal spar, Sarah announced, her voice calm despite the sirens screaming in their cockpit. Hull stress on the Nail is at 82% and climbing. Their grav core is oscillating at 40 Hz. If it hits 50, the pulse will rip our forward towing winch right out of the engine block, reroute auxiliary power to the dampeners. Cole ordered, strapping his heavy Evia helmet onto his pressurized collar, and grab the heavy plasma torches. We've got 12 minutes to cut through their auxiliary airlock before the pressure differential crushes the stasis pod bay. Already loaded the cutter rigs, Sarah said, racking a battery cell into her sidearm-mounted mag torch. You know the Valith think we're suicidal, right? The station commander's biomonitors probably think our heart rates are an error code. Cole grinned, a weathered, toothy smile framed by gray stubble. Let them watch. Maybe they'll learn how to patch a leak without filing a committee report first. They stepped into the decompression chamber. The heavy steel doors groaned as the air vanished, replaced by the crushing silence of the void. To alien species, space was a domain of sterile mathematics, traversed in pristine, hyper-automated bubbles. To humanity, space was just another hostile ocean, no different from the North Sea or the Antarctic ice shelves that their ancestors had sailed in wooden boats held together with tar, iron nails, and stubborn defiance. When a machine broke on Earth, you didn't throw it into a star. You hit it with a hammer until the gears meshed, welded a steel plate over the hole, and kept moving. Cole and Sarah leaped across the 400-meter void between the two ships, propelled by microthrusters on their heavy armored suits. Beneath them, the core veil groans in structural agony. The alien ship was massive, over 2 kilometers of iridescent pearlescent alloy, but it was dying. Purple flashes of ionizing radiation crackled across its fractured midsection, spitting arcs of lightning into the blackness. They slammed boots first onto the alien hull, their electromagnetic soles biting hard into the exotic composite. Atmosphere inside the wreck is 50% sulfur dioxide and burning electrical insulation, Sarah reported, scanning the hatch seam. Alien safety locks are frozen shut. The automated system sealed the doors to prevent contamination. Figures, Cole muttered, stepping forward with a twin-nozzle plasma torch. When an alien lock gets scared, it plays dead. Watch your eyes. He ignited the torch. A roaring jet of bright cyan flames stabbed into the alien alloy. Sparks cascaded like golden rain across the frozen hull. The pearlescent metal, designed to absorb energy weapons, buckled and liquefied under the crude, concentrated thermal violence of industrial human tools. Inside the perimeter observation station, Teshmore watched the sensor feed in absolute disbelief. They are cutting into an active structural bulkhead, Teshmore whispered to his tactical aide. The heat transfer alone should trigger the vessel's automatic self-destruct safeguard. Ah, Commander, the aide chimed, his multiple eyes widening. The Terran engineers bypassed the safeguard 3 minutes ago. They attached an analog grounding wire to the alien power bus and discharged the fail-safe current directly into their own tug's heat sinks. They grounded an alien dreadnought into their own radiator coils. Teshmore's antennae stood rigid with horror. If their heat sink overloads, their own ship will cook from the inside out. Their heat sinks are glowing bright cherry red, sir, but their internal cabin temperature is only rising by 4 degrees. They are circulating liquid freon through jury-rigged copper tubing along their outer hull. Teshmore gripped the console railing. The sheer, shameless improvisation was horrifying. Concordat Science spent centuries designing redundant crystalline logic circuits to avoid risk. Humans simply brought extra copper pipe, a bucket of coolant, and gambled their lives on the strength of a manual weld. Inside the core veil, the air was a toxic soup of smoke and ozone. Cole and Sarah hauled their equipment carts through the dark, canted corridors. The floor beneath their magnetic boots shuddered with every breath of the failing gravimetric core. Emergency warning klaxons blared in three-toned alien harmonics, flashing amber and violent ultraviolet. They reached the lower stasis bay. 80 cylindrical capsules were lined along the walls, their cryogenic readouts flickering dangerously. Inside were alien civilian researchers and transport crew who had been placed into medical torpor when the ship's life support initially failed. "Main power is completely severed," Sarah said, sweeping her scanner over the console. "The stasis capsules have less than 4 minutes of battery backup. Once the power drops below 12 volts, the cellular suspension fields will collapse." "Hooken the mobile generator up," Cole barked, slamming a heavy steel box onto the deck. "The voltage formats don't match, Marcus. Their systems run on high-frequency triphase current. Our generator outputs standard direct current. Then strip the insulation off the leads and bridge it through our plasma torch transformers," Cole said, pulling a combat knife from his chest rig and slicing into the thick umbilical cables without a second thought. "That could fry the entire relay," Sarah warned. "It will give them power, or it will kill them," Cole snapped, twisting the raw copper wires together with bare, gloved fingers. "And they're already dead if we stand here talking." "Jam the leads in," Sarah didn't argue. She shoved the improvised copper tap directly into the glowing alien power receptacle. A violent shower of white sparks exploded across the room. The smell of burning rubber and scorched silicon filled their helmets. Sarah groaned as an electrical backsurge kicked through her armored suit, knocking her back onto the deck. For 2 agonizing seconds, the stasis bay went pitch black. Then, with a low, thrumming hum, the amber status lights on all 80 capsules flipped to steady emerald green. "Stasis field stabilized," Sarah coughed, hauling herself up by an overhead pipe. "Current is holding. Marcus, we did it." "Don't celebrate yet," Cole grunted, hauling a heavy tow cable toward the central pod rack. The ship's spine just gave out. "We have 3 minutes before this whole bay separates from the hull." Outside, the core veil was tearing itself apart. A massive crack split the dreadnought's center section, venting thousands of tons of frozen air and debris into the void. The sheer mass of the separating rear half threatened to pull the rusty nail into the spinning debris field. On the station, Teshmore leaned forward, his vocal synthesizer squealing in alarm. "Captain Cole, the rear superstructure is shearing. Release your tow cables, or your ship will be pulled into the pulsar's gravimetric eddy." Through the comms, Cole's voice was strained, breathless but completely level. "Negative, Transit Command. We've secured the stasis rack to our primary winch." Sarah hit the reverse thrusters. Full burn. The rusty nail's chemical engines ignited with blinding fury. Twin plumes of brilliant orange flame stretched hundreds of meters behind the battered tug. The towing cables snapped taut, vibrating with such violent tension that microscopic flecks of frozen steel sheared off the wire rope. The little tug groaned. Hull plates buckled along its midsection. Warning sirens on the human ship shrieked in unison as its inertial dampeners struggled against the titanic mass of the alien cargo. For 5 terrifying seconds, nothing moved. The dying dreadnought seemed determined to drag its rescuer into the abyss. Then, with a deafening screech of tearing alloy transmitted through the kinetic cables, The entire stasis cargo bay ripped free from the core veil's shattered carcass. The rusty nail surged forward into the clear void, dragging the 80 alien stasis pods behind it like a string of glowing green pearls. Behind them, the remaining 2 kilometers of the core veil tumbled into the gravitational well of the dead star, collapsing into a silent, blinding flash of light before vanishing forever. Silence descended upon the observation deck of the Concordat station. Teshmore's tactical officers sat motionless at their screens. The telemetry was undeniable. A 30-year-old human salvage vessel, crewed by 2 carbon-based primates wielding crude thermal tools and jury-rigged copper wire, had entered an unsurvivable hazard zone, extracted 80 living souls and millions of credits worth of stasis hardware, and emerged with only minor hull buckling and an overheated radiator. The comms channel crackled back to life. "Transit command, this is Rusty Nail." Cole's voice came through, punctuated by the heavy, rhythmic sound of him drinking water from a ration pouch. "Cargo is secured. Pod biomonitors are all green. Requesting vector approach to your secondary docking ring. Oh, and you wouldn't happen to have 200 liters of industrial coolant and a spare welding rig on hand, would you? We bruised our port fender on the way out." Teshmore slowly lowered his optical scanner. His mandibles worked silently for several seconds before his vocal synthesizer could find the appropriate translation matrix. "Terran vessel Rusty Nail," Teshmore replied, his voice devoid of its previous clinical coldness. "Vector approved. Clear all docking corridors. Medical teams are mobilizing to receive the pods." He paused, looking at his tactical aide, who was already archiving the rescue logs under a new classification. "Captain Cole," Teshmore added softly. "Go ahead, Commander. Our historical archives contain records of over 4,000 spacefaring civilizations. When their machines fail, they submit to the mathematics of decay. Why did you not leave them?" Through the speaker, Cole let out a soft, low chuckle, a sound forged in centuries of human miners, sailors, and engineers fighting against unforgiving landscapes. "Because in our corner of the galaxy, Commander, nothing is broken forever until you give up on it. Keep the dock lights on. We're coming in." Teshmore watched the battered, soot-stained tug slowly haul its prize toward the station's glowing embrace. He opened his personal log, bypassed the standard automated templates, and typed a single line into the permanent Concordat record, "Addendum to Terran Threat and Capability Profile." Do not judge human technology by its elegance. Judge it by their refusal to let things die.